Automotive trend.
Yamaha YZF-R25. The thing about small displacement motorcycles, especially those in the quarter-liter class, is that some of them can be heaps of fun to ride. This is especially so if you're a rider with a sporty outlook, and like pushing the limit, somewhat, on what a particular motorcycle is capable of. When testing motorcycles with a lack of outright power, the rider is allowed to concentrate on other traits of the bike, in areas where barely a second thought might be given. One example is cornering speed, another is rider comfort, and even ergonomics. One thing that Yamaha has been known for, since the days of the Road, and following that, the Road LZ and YPV's models, is how to put a whole lot of performance and fun in a small 250cc package. The latest iteration of Yamaha's small sports bike, the YZF-R25, assumes the mantle of the R5 and its racing sibling, the TR3. With the basic building block of a parallel twin, the YZF-R25 makes no bones about being a sports bike, targeted to the young rider who is stepping up to their first real bike. As the baby of the Yamaha sport bike range, the R25 does most things right for a sports bike. Come along as we take the YZF-R25 through its paces on a test ride review, and find out what we liked about the 250cc sports bike, and what we didn't. Approaching the Yamaha YZF-R25, the first thing that strikes the eye is its handsome looks, drawing heavily on the design DNA of its bigger siblings, the R6 and R1. Most notably, the head-on look of the R25 resembles most strikingly the R6 of a generation ago. The sharp, flat planes and folded angles of the fairing certainly give the R25 a very aggressive, sporty look that would appeal to the young man this bike is targeted for. Getting on the R25 drops you into a 780mm tall pocket, with the 14.3-liter fuel tank in front, and the tailpiece with its diminutive seat pad placing the rider into a very central position. Starting up, the YZF-R25 lights up the Christmas tree on the instrument panel, and the readout is divided into a large analog tachometer on the left, and numeric speedometer on the right. All the basic information necessary for the rider is there, including an LCD bar, fuel gauge and temperature meter, and gear indicator. 2 trip meters and an odometer complete the display, and fuel consumption calculator. We thought the instrument panel was a little lackluster and basic, until we noticed the little shift light at the top of the cluster. Starting off on the R25 is with 8 snipped into first on the very smooth gearbox. On the launch, the power delivery is controllable, and is definitely a plus for beginners. Speaking of power, the YZF-R25's engine, an EFIDOHC valve for stroke parallel twin with liquid cooling, pumps out a very appropriate claimed 36.5 HP at 12,000 RPM and 22.6 Nm at 10,000 RPM. If you've been paying attention thus far, those RPM figures should raise an eyebrow, for both, and for good reason. Back in the 80s, Yamaha produced the 4-cylinder phaser, with a 250cc engine that revved to a stratospheric, for a road bike, redline of 20,000 RPM. This was done to pull as much air and fuel into the engine as possible, in order to provide power figures that eclipsed the crop of quarter-liter bikes of that era. With its 14,000 RPM redline, comparable to the current 15,000 RPM limit for current Formula One cars, means that the rider has to twist the throttle a long way, and without mercy, for the YZF-R25 to perform at, shall we say, interesting levels. This means that the meat of the power band lies in the upper reaches of the tachometer, something that will be familiar to readers who have taken a 250cc two-stroke road bike for a good run. While keeping the tachometer needle below 7,000 rpm lets the R25 behave quite tractably, and suitable for dealing with urban traffic. A little prodding of the engine reveals that there is more meat to it than first appears. Wringing the throttle out, and this is where we wished for a quarter twist race throttle, brings the little 250cc engine into the meat of the power band, and the R25 wakes up. Not suddenly, no light switch on-off power here, just a sudden surge and push forward as the engine pours on the steam and delivers. And this is the key to riding the YZF-R25. Like its two-stroke ancestors, keeping the R25's engine in the power band makes the bike feel like it has a much bigger engine, which it hasn't. What the R25 needs is a balanced hand on the throttle, and the skill to keep the engine and gearbox in sync. So, effectively, the R25 behaves like two bikes in one. Below 7,000 rpm, you have this tractable, easy-to-ride, daily commuter that is capable, if a little boring. Then you kick the engine in the nuts, bring the engine speed to about 8,000 and things happen fairly quickly. While the YZF-R25 can be ridden by any rider, regardless of experience level, an experienced rider will have a lot of fun winding out the R25's engine and rowing the gearbox lever. Getting the best out of the R25, like most every other 250cc motorcycle, is corner speed and lean angle. This is helped by the R25's suspension. While the front is a non-adjustable OEM telescopic fork, we found the spring rate and compression to be well suited to our rider's weight and riding style. Slow riding showed the bike absorbed the bumps and potholes of city riding well, and served its purpose on high-speed canyon strafing and highway riding. The rear shock absorber, also an OEM unit, was adjustable only for preload. As tested, the standard setting worked for general riding duties, but rather more spirited, sharp corner and leaned over riding would call for the spring to be wound up a little tighter. Taking our usual test loop of canyons, country roads and highways, the R25 performed with no fuss. Carving the canyons revealed the steering to be sharp and precise, while the turn-in was a touch slow. Once the corner entry was chosen, the R25 stayed there, with no hint of grumbling about being pushed hard. If you're changing rear brake pads more often than the front, then you're riding the bike wrong. This of course exempts purposefully locking the rear wheel up for skids, stunts and the like, something Yamaha specifically warned us against doing when we took delivery of the YZF-R25. Speaking of riding the 166 kg YZF-R25 hard, its diamond configuration frame was suitably stiff everywhere, and showed no signs of flex when pushed to the limit in corners and swift changes of direction. The R25's quality of build was exemplary throughout, save the fact that the pillion seat pad was loose in its mounting. We didn't know if this was a production fault, or something that was peculiar to our test bike, since many had ridden it before us. We remarked on this to Yamaha when we returned the bike, and were promised the issue would be looked into. Thank you for watching this video. See you next time.